Warning, this podcast contains murder. What's up, everyone, and welcome to the As Seen on TV podcast for Scream Season 1, Episode 10, Revelations. I'm your host, Dom. With me, my co-host, Kim.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. Finally got our killer.
Finally got our killer. So we weren't too
kinda
far
called.
off. Yeah, we weren't too far off base there.
No, the ending. What was the semi-surprising part?
Yes. So they
But-
decided not to go the transgender route by just doing a identity mix-up or something. I was confused where they were just like, oh, you assumed it was his son.
I think that was it was a feminist kind of thing. It was like you assumed that it was a guy being a murderer and not
I
a
thought they
possibility of a female being a
I
murderer.
thought they said it was a male multiple times in the Brandon had a son. I thought that was what was stated, not what was assumed.
That was what I was stated, but it was never a for sure thing. They just all continued to assume that it was a boy.
How does Daisy give birth to a child and not know if it's male or female?
That's what I was wondering. Did they just take the baby and run and never tell you? I mean, that was my thing too. I'm like, you never found out what sex it was? I don't understand how that works.
Yeah.
I mean, the only way I
confused.
I mean, she was young. It was, a different time. I didn't think it was that, but maybe they just were like, okay. I mean, she did go off somewhere to have the child. So maybe they were just all like, oh, we're going to just take the baby and...
I mean, they do that. That's not completely out of, the realm of possibilities. They, people that don't plan on keeping the children, they will give it up for adoption. They don't want to see the baby. They don't want to hold the baby. They don't want to know anything about the baby because they don't want that emotional attachment. It makes it that much easier to give it away.
Right.
So if that was her plan all along, then yeah, that may be how that went down. But... there was clearly ultrasound photos available and different things, so she had to care for the child to some level.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't go get ultrasounds. You'd just, have it in, whatever. I don't know. You wouldn't want to pay for the ultrasound if you knew you weren't going to keep it, I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't know. And that was already after Brandon was dead, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Brandon wasn't involved at all. So I don't know.
Yeah. So, the sheriff had nothing to do with it.
Obviously. Because he's dead.
He just poured his heart out.
You mean his intestines?
His heart, his intestines, same thing.
Oh, I knew something was going to happen when he started, trying to get her to not cut the rope.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh God, what's gonna happen? And it's the same. Well, I guess he wasn't tied to a tree in the first movie. He was tied to a chair, but it was still that whole, chest ripping open and guts, and then you just saw the intestines start to fall out. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
nah.
Yeah, that was probably the most gruesome of the deaths. I think even more than sawing Will vertically in half.
Well, because we never actually saw the sawing. I mean, we got to see the him running around, in two pieces, which was kind of a little crazy. But yeah, in this case where you actually get to watch him still alive as his intestines go it's like
I couldn't help but think of the scene from Jurassic Park where the first Jurassic Park where Dr. Grant's explaining how the Velociraptor cuts open the prey and he goes, and the point is, you are alive when they start to eat you. And I was just like, that's all I could think about. When the intestines are pouring out, I was just like, so this is what it's like to die by Velociraptor. Got it. So.
He really had to maneuver that, to make sure the rope sat just right so that it kept him alive until it was removed.
Well, that could have been something that he slit him open, and wrapped him nearly at the same time. And that could have been even before he was tied to the tree. because that rope didn't necessarily go to the tree, the one she cut, because she was cutting through pretty much all the ropes that
Yeah.
were involved, and especially if you have like a rope around him and then mask it in with the ones that are wrapped to the tree, you're just gonna cut all the ropes. You know, you're not gonna, you
Yeah.
know, I don't know.
You
It
have,
was that was vicious. I like that one. That was probably my
it,
favorite of them all.
it was. I mean, it was kind of sad. But you know what? I'm still on this whole thing that Daisy. I just gonna keep calling her that Daisy. Her emotions are very limited. Like they're kind of like she doesn't like
Mm,
she was upset, but it didn't last very long.
yeah,
And I'm just like you got over that quickly. You're all like she's all ripped and ready to go, and I'm all like, "Duh."
yeah. I mean, Piper was my first and foremost choice for the killer. I wanted the sheriff to be in on it just for the dynamic of the sheriff has never been in on it in the Scream universe thus far.
Mhm.
But my money was on Piper,
I
and
yeah, we've been talking about the Piper was and last episode we were talking about how she kept leading into things
yeah.
and how she just kept showing Emma into stuff and how easily she was the one to be like, oh, it was, she was the one that pushed the whole, it was a son, it was a boy. And then she wants to go back. Like, I guess it was like you were so easy to assume that it was a boy. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
just to go, you went with what I had to say without even,
Right. Yeah, she was really pushing it along, and then that whole the victim always returns to the scene of the crime thing. She had a perfect reason to be at every crime scene because of her podcast status. Like
yeah.
everybody knew her and kind of respected her in the genre, and we knew that she had the father that was murdered and kind of set her down this path, and it only makes sense that that father was Brandon James. And I was always slightly suspicious of her, when they like she was actually introduced in the second episode,
Mhm.
and I was very suspicious of her then. Um, and for maybe one or two episodes, she kind of slipped out of my mind, and then like as it kept going, she just became more prominent and prominent. But I still didn't think they were gonna do it until maybe a couple episodes ago. But she was always in the back of my mind at least. So,
Mhm.
um,
She definitely was a suspect for me. I mean, there was other people that I'm like, oh well, blah blah, blah for this reason or that reason, this reason. But again, like we said, it was the show leading us in that direction, or obviously it was Piper blaming or leading it into that direction, so it made you think that it was not her but somebody else.
right. Um, we kind of had some red herring stuff along the way. We had the whole plot line with the mayor, which panned out to kind of be a big deal, but not really. Like, we didn't hear anything of it in the last, like, 2 or 3 episodes.
No, you're right. We haven't heard anything, so we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, so there was no, like, consequence aftermath of that. We never got resolution on that. The mother's still in rehab. Brooke is still alive. So that storyline will continue in next season because it is already renewed. It was renewed before it aired for another season.
Yeah, and
And then Jake just being super creepy, but involved on like the webcam spying and all that. Like that's still in there. And then the very end, was it just me or were they implying that Audrey was involved?
they were implying that she was involved. She had letters from Piper, which she burned. She had the evidence that was missing from Brandon James's file, which means she probably was the one who took the mask a year prior.
She could have been.
So
Or
now
is this just stuff that Piper mailed her?
maybe.
Or I don't, they like that's not to say that Audrey is the next killer because that would be very weird. I think going into the next season knowing that Audrey's in on it, um, and I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that dynamic if that's the case, or if this is a red herring to make us think that Audrey was involved.
I don't know, but we also know that they did not find Piper's body.
What is
But
up with that lake?
I don't know, but she did get shot in the head as far as that was what it looked like. So I don't know. I don't think there's coming back from that.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon James was shot there. Piper was shot there. Both their bodies can't be found. They dragged the whole river. They scuba dived. They went looking. Like, something's up with that river. Like, is there like a wormhole in that river somewhere that I don't know
So,
where?
pull some weird, crazy shit out of their asses. That's the. I mean, it's not like it's a river; it's a lake, so you don't have that same like
Right.
current
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
you're
thing
right.
going on. But I mean, there's still such thing as like an undertow. They said there was like a fight that there's a dip right
Yeah,
off right there.
yeah, 4 foot
So
drop. I think they said.
yeah, so it is possible of a what is it? I can't think what it's called. Like it's a suckage kind of thing. Like
Yeah, like the undertow.
yeah, under that's forget that's the first words I used. So I mean, it is possible, but still, they're scuba diving in a lake that obviously probably isn't too deep. I mean, I wouldn't see it as too deep to where they couldn't go to the bottom. And they said, like you said, they did like scour the whole place. And how can you not only one body but two?
Well, see, here's the thing. We don't even know if that was a real gun. If Audrey was in on it, it could have just been a prop gun.
Yeah, true.
And if it was a prop gun, it wouldn't have done anything when she got shot the first time. It wouldn't have done anything when Emma shot her the second time.
But didn't this gun originally come from Kieran?
Yes, but that's not to say that she could have unloaded it and filled it with blanks.
True. This is true.
So,
Unless Kieran's in on it too.
could be.
Dun, dun, dun.
Could be. I mean, there's still a lot left open there. And then if Audrey is on it, then that goes back to Rachel.
Yeah.
Why did she kill Rachel?
I don't know. I mean, we did get glimpses of saying that Audrey was a little controlling, and so maybe she has this other, attitude that we weren't getting at. That we're not like seeing. I mean, we saw that her angry outburst on
Yeah.
Nina.
Yeah, and that could have now just been a whole lie. Like that could have been the truth.
Yeah,
That
she could have
she
been
really
the one.
did go there immediately following that. And her story she told Emma is fake. So I think it would be interesting going forward now knowing who the killer is. I don't know how long they could keep that up, and interested in how they can do it. I just can't wrap my head around like if it would actually be interesting to watch.
I
You
don't
know?
know. I mean, yeah, I don't. I mean, this whole season it was easy. We had no idea. I mean, we had inklings, we had thought processes. We were wanting it to be this person to this person. It did end up being one of the people that we wanted him to be because it was different from the movies, which was what we were hoping for.
Right.
But yeah, moving into the next one, knowing if Aubrey is the killer, or if it just led us to think that direction, that she did have somewhat involvement, obviously in some way or form, because she had that locked up. She had those letters locked up. She had all of that information locked up. I mean, she had, like I said, the evidence that came with the stealing of the mask.
Yeah.
So either Piper sent her all of that stuff, and it was Piper that did all the stealing, or it was Aubrey is fully involved. Now, there's still to the process. There might be more than just her involved. There might be more people involved. We have no idea
Yeah.
until people die. Is the only time we can still take them off the list. Obviously.
Yeah. I'm not upset with Audrey being the second killer if that is the case because I wanted her anyway since the beginning. I kind of said it'd be really cool if she was.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, yeah, because somebody had to hit Piper over the head when then she brought Matt back to the warehouse.
Yeah, we knew there was another person involved.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, this did feel a lot like Scream 3, with the other sibling kind of storyline, so it
Yeah.
slightly feels like a rehash in that department. And then it feels a little like Scream 4, where Sydney's cousin's friend, who was kind of playing the Randy role,
Yeah.
like it feels like Audrey was slightly in that role because she hung out with Noah a lot, but at the same time
Yeah.
she wasn't exactly that role. So I don't know. It's weird to place her. So I think she's just kind of like a new type of character that we haven't exactly seen before in the movie. So I guess that's fine too, having that element of it as well if it turns out that is what she is. Um, but I think overall, I'm not disappointed with the TV series. I liked it, but I'm slightly disappointed with it as a Scream TV series because while it did stay true to the genre, and like keeping the movie tropes and stuff, I feel like the comedy of Scream was not in the TV series at all. This was a much darker, and it
Yeah,
took itself more serious, and I feel that that was part of its downfall.
it did. And this is something we had talked about previously. Is that it didn't? It You're right that it didn't have that somewhat joking, making fun of itself, making fun of. I mean, you did get some of the like we talked about some of the storytelling of how horror movies are.
Like
I mean,
the opening trailer that we saw from before the TV series even launched, when they started rattling off the rules of a horror film and how it converted to TV. You can't do a slasher film and as a TV series,
yeah.
and like I had a lot of hope for the show, and I did enjoy the show. So don't get me wrong,
Mhm.
but I don't know if I enjoyed it as part of the Scream franchise.
No, yeah, it had its moments. It had its joking, slightly making fun of itself, slightly, making fun of like death and whatever. But yeah, it's nowhere near of what it did for. I mean, the voice in general. Like we knew the voice of the killer was a lot darker. It wasn't as joking and ridiculous as it was in the movies.
But at the
And
same time, that's not really Piper's personality,
no,
either.
right.
So it kind of makes sense, but it just felt a little off to me.
No, I mean, but like I said, there's still parts there. Like Noah had the part where they walk into the party and the music's going, and he goes, uh, "Bubblegum pop is never sounds so terrifying." I mean, it had it's ridiculous moments.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I don't know. I'm still definitely excited for the second season.
yeah,
Um, do you think the second season's going to be more than 10 episodes, or do you think 10 was a good number for this show?
I think 10 is a good number for this show,
Mm-hmm.
because I like this. I think the first season was easy, being we knew nothing. I think it's going to get harder now that we've revealed one of the killers. I mean, and then it's leading up into what it seems is already knowing that someone, we already knew someone else was involved in
Right.
some shape or form. So I think it's going to get harder. That's just, I mean, at where they put themselves. Like, I worry that I don't know how much longer they're going to be able to go. I mean, but you know what? Then they could come back and throw some weird wrench into the whole thing, and it'll be like, what?
Yeah.
But
Would you like to see this remain a summer show, or do you think that it would do better in the fall slot with like Halloweenish kind of theme?
um, I think that it's fine where it's at. There's a lot of shows that it would have to compete with in the fall, uh, and it's not just because it's a slasher movie, just because or slasher show. I mean, um, doesn't mean that it has to be Halloween.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I mean, there's slasher movies that are more specifically for summer. I mean, it's not. I don't think
I know
it's
what you did last summer.
exactly. Um, Slasher movies are slasher movies, slasher shows, slasher anything that stuff. Like I don't think they're stuck in the Halloween like genre.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it may do better there. It had a decent viewership, in the summer, which kind of awkward for summer TV shows. They typically don't get a lot of viewership. I mean, the show started off at 1 million viewers, and for the finale, it dropped down to 0.76. But that was still higher than the last episode, episode 9. The dance was only at 0.55 million. So it's taken a hit, but it picked back up for the finale. A lot more people tuned in for that. For the rest of it, it stayed fairly consistent, at about 0.75 on average, through the rest of the series. So I think it filled in a good gap, but I don't know if it was popular enough to actually be slotted into the fall slot. So I don't think, I think they'll probably keep it in the summer slot, or they may in fact try the fall slot to see if that's going to affect the ratings in their favor. the next season does start next year. That's all we know. And
Yep.
it is scheduled for 2016. Um, but outside of that, we don't really know much about it. Um, and then also, not exactly the TV series news, but Wes Craven did pass away,
Yes.
um, this last week, and uh, it's kind of a big deal. Wes Craven pretty much with the Scream genre redefined the slasher film. You know, it's just it's kind of crazy.
It definitely a huge hit to for his death. Really, I mean, horror movies in general, because he did more than just like Scream. He did a lot of other stuff.
Oh yeah, of course.
So
Like he did the original Last House on the Left.
yeah.
He was involved in the original Hills Have Eyes. He was involved in the Twilight Zone TV series. He, of course, Nightmare on Elm Street. I think he was involved in almost all of them, and as well as the weird Freddy movie that they had, which was Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which was that it was a good movie, but it was so weird because it was like the a movie about the
Yeah,
the movie.
the movie.
Like yeah, I don't know, it was really weird, and the hand was coming to life, and I don't know, it was, like the claws, whatever. That was really good. He was involved in all four of the Scream movies, I believe. Yes, all the way through there. Um, I don't know. He was involved in Dracula 2000 franchise. He was involved in Wishmaster.
See, a lot of people didn't like the Dracula 2000.
Yeah.
I liked the Dracula 2000. Like, I just like vampire movies in general. Like most, there are a few that I can be like, I want everything to do
Mm-hmm.
with. Twilight. But okay, I lied. I actually watched once, but uh, the but I mean, just it's sad. It's sad.
It is. It is. And he was also the executive producer for the TV series, so that was really interesting. And his lifetime highest grossing films were the first four Scream movies in that order: Scream 1, Scream 2, Scream 3, Scream 4, straight down the list. Even more so than any of the Nightmare on Elm Streets. And I don't know, when I think of horror movies, I think in my mind, Nightmare on Elm Street is insanely more popular than
Oh.
Scream. But
Well, I mean, you got Freddy Krueger and all of the it's a more of a cult. You got to think of it's a cult classic. You're looking at it in that sense. You do see it as more popular.
yeah,
I mean, Scream's got its own its own following, its own stuff. But yeah, Freddy Krueger is forever etched in horror monsters. Just period.
but it's just like looking at the highest grossing film list. You have Scream at number one at $173 million, and then the only Freddy Krueger movie that's on this list comes in at number 9, and that's Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, which I think was one of the worst ones in the franchise. I hated that movie, absolutely hated it, and that ranked in at $44 million, almost 45 million. So it's just like
The problem
he's
with
made a fortune off these movies.
with those numbers, like I always felt like I understand those numbers, but at the same time you look at them and I'm like, what else was coming out at the same time? What else, what was going on at the time in everything else, in the world? Those things affect those numbers too.
Yeah.
But I think it's more in memories and, like I said, cult classics and all that other stuff. Freddy Krueger's gonna be forever remembered, ever. Uh, I mean, Scream, it's got, like I said, it's got its own popularity. It's got its own stuff. I mean, there's freaking Scream masks flipping everywhere in every different shape, stupid, and form. So, I mean, it's got its own thing too.
Yeah. It's crazy. And then, you know, uh, unfortunately, he lost his battle with cancer, but there's people I'm gonna look this up right now, but like Wes Craven launched Johnny Depp's career.
Pretty much. Yep.
Like Johnny Depp was in
The first,
first Nightmare.
Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah.
But
He was the one that got sucked into the bed, and as the blood goes, oh, I hated
Yeah.
that scene. It's so gross.
yeah, and he's so young in that movie. It's
Oh yeah.
But I don't know if Johnny Depp really like big into social media. I don't see him anywhere on like Facebook. Like he has his own Facebook or anything like that. I doubt he has a Twitter. I'm gonna check really quick, but I'm kind of curious. Uh, yeah, no, he doesn't even have a Twitter. So,
I think he's kind of somewhat private.
yeah, he is. So I want to kind of hear from Johnny Depp, like how much of a inspiration and influence Wes Craven was on his whole career and stuff. I think that would be really interesting. I'm sure there's going to be some interviews from him in the near future. But yeah, so it's sad to see Wes go, but you know thank you very much, Wes, for your contributions to the genre. Because without you, I'm almost positive the genre would have died.
Oh yeah.
Because it was when just before Scream came out, the cliche, horror movies were Freddy and Jason and Halloween, and they were so predictable and they followed the same format. And Scream was really the first franchise to come along in the horror genre to turn itself on its head.
I mean, even you look at it now, but I mean, it's still during that time too. You were looking at the horror movies were not made like they were used to be.
Right.
They still aren't. It's horror movies are not made to be scary really anymore. And I'm not saying the Scream genre was going for that because they weren't. But it slasher films are their own like thing. They're going for the gore and the suspense and the more of the drama stuff. They're not looking to scare you. So
They are and they're not. It's usually
yeah,
the cheap scares, like the
yeah.
sound increases and a cat jumps out of a window, or
So
and it's
yeah,
just
so
like,
more
oh my god, and then the killer's like standing behind you, and you're just like, okay, I'm not scared anymore.
you
You're
get the
scared of the
jump.
cat, but not the
You
killer.
you got the jump scare, and they're like, oh, everything's okay, and then bleh.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I more mean like the genre was so predictable and stale, at that point that it was basically fizzling out and dying, and then you come in with Scream, who's like it's self-aware, like all like in Freddy and Jason and Halloween and there's no like horror movies that the people are watching and basing like things off of. In this one, they're like every horror movie that exists in this universe. It's not like even like The
Yeah.
Walking Dead currently. All the characters in The Walking Dead live in a world where there's no such thing as zombies. There's no comic books. There's no TV shows. There's no movies. There's no nothing about zombies. Like they don't exist in this world.
Hmm.
And Scream is the complete opposite. They're just like, no, all this stuff exists. We know about everything, and we're gonna incorporate that. And they play off of it, and they have a lot of fun. And that's how they use the TV tropes of you have sex and you're dead. You
Yeah,
know.
it's the making fun of horror movies.
Yeah, and then
Wow, why you're in a horror movie, and that was the big.
I think
That was
Scream
cool.
4 was my favorite one when they opened up with like 6 different false endings.
I was so like okay, so obviously when we started this, I hadn't seen the fourth one.
Right.
I had watched all the other ones previously, and I was like, okay, well, you told me to go sit and watch, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go sit and watch it. I didn't know what the hell was going on at the beginning. I was like, wait, what's happening?
Yeah. And they even make fun of themselves, and they're all just like, oh, all these movies now, they're all self-aware, postmodern, and it's true because now everybody has copied the Scream format,
Yeah.
and like you even take the remake that they did of the Jason Voorhees movie, Jason, I don't remember, was it I think it was just
Uh,
Jason. I don't remember what
I don't
the
remember.
most it was, because I think they came out with two, but the reboot, the first time they rebooted it, I remember going into the theater and watching it, and you have the classic slow Jason like methodically killing people, and then like you have this one guy, he's booking it, he's running, and you think he's gonna get out, and all of a sudden, out of the cornfield or the forest or whatever Jason was running, he just came running. You never saw Jason run. He comes running and just hucks the machete and pins the guy to like the tree by throwing the machete. Those are two things you've never seen Jason do, and it like you were just like, oh my god. But that is all stuff that was inspired from the way that Scream was handled, because if Scream never came along, we would be stuck in the same boring, monotonous genre over and over again. But that's not to say another genre or another franchise wouldn't have come along and done that. But Scream was the first one to do it, so credit's got to be given where credit is due.
Oh yeah, I definitely a reinvention.
Yeah, and even the Saw movies, I don't think would exist without Scream.
I don't know, because again, it's the same process of making fun of some horror movies.
Yeah. So
those are just plain gruesome.
They are.
There is no trying to scare you at all. That is just gross.
Yeah, but see, the story is what I like in Scream, and if everybody looks at it as, oh, it's just a blood and guts film, that's not true. Like, there is a real story there, and when you get into the story, you realize how deep this is, and like the level that the character's on, and why he's doing what he's doing, and the lessons that he's trying to teach people of how to appreciate their life. And it's actually my favorite story in a horror type film genre, because Freddy Freddy, Jason, whatever, they have a little bit of thread of a story. Freddy is quote unquote child molester, and the parents came in, and in one telling he did it, in the remake he did do it, and then in the original one he was framed, like they went after him anyway, he didn't actually do it and he was seeking revenge. So there's two different tellings of that. But when it comes down to it, it's just revenge. That's all it is. There's really nothing to it. It's just revenge. And Jason is he drowned in the water, and he's seeking revenge. And
he was being made fun of when he was by all the other kids.
Yeah, and Mike Myers is very similar, fashion into that. And,
yeah, and you know what? It the whole. I mean, obviously the lake thing with the show here kind of plays off that. It's like same thought process as Brandon James was made fun of. He was different. His face was, and it's got that
everything all wrapped into one.
Yeah.
So because it's got a very Michael Myers kind of feel to it, and it's got a Jason kind of feel to it, with that, and and now even slightly a little bit of a hint of like the Freddy Krueger vibe, because he's, even though it was Piper, it's like he came from beyond the grave and he's haunting you from places unknown, to come back and
the hallucination screen, the hallucination whole of what episode was that? A couple episodes.
Yeah, so they did a good nod to like the other horror genres out there, and even some of the TV shows they mentioned. Pretty Little Liars, it's not horror, it's more suspense thriller kind of show.
No, but it was interesting that they talked about it. So
yeah,
it was that they're living in our world. That was the whole thing. But this is like, this really not. I mean, the thought process, this all could really happen if someone really wanted to go out and start slashing people.
Yeah, the only thing that they did not make any references to were the Scream movies, so it probably exists in the same universe as the Scream movies. And they also didn't mention the Woodsboro murders at all, so I don't know how much knowledge there is about that. You would think that everybody's heard about Sydney and everything. That was a big popular story that was going around that town, but we don't know if it was a localized story, if it, it spread out. So I'm hoping second season there's some mention of it somewhere, maybe get a glimpse of one of the characters. So, like, even if Sydney's just like drinking coffee in the coffee shop.
I can't see why
even if they don't talk to her or give her dialogue, but just to see her sitting in the thing as in a minor cameo like that will do huge things for the series,
Yeah, playing homage to the show. Yeah, and I am surprised that they didn't, like, after as much comments of other things they've made. That they didn't make any comments. Remember that when you were talking about they didn't really play off Saw like we thought they were going to either.
Right.
So, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think that about does it, unless you have anything else for us.
Nope. I think we talked about everything, and even extra stuff. I didn't even, Wes Craven, rest in peace.
Yep. Kim, where can people find you?
At HUFFITY,
Excellent. You can find me there, down below at Phenomenon, PHENOMEDOM. You can also find the two of us and more on Facebook, Gmail, G+, Twitter, And right here on YouTube at /ASO TV Podcast for some more podcasts for some of your favorite TV shows. Till next year. See you guys later.
Bye.
Oh, wait till next year. Please don't make it a fall show. We have enough on our plates.
I was saying, I'm like, why would you want to say that? Like,
well,
you don't want to.
It's a possibility. We have to think about it.
Yeah,
I don't want it to be. We covered too much. There's no room for it.
It's bad enough that we have to add iZombie into the UK.
Yeah, iZombie was moved to the fall.